So you've come down really, really hard on all the violent protests and the looting that's going on, but you do acknowledge that they're just angry and they don't know how to channel that anger.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Atlanta is the home of the civil rights movement. That's no secret. So we're used to protest and to gatherings and true organization. But what we saw happening in our city on Friday was not in that spirit at all. I understand the anger and the frustration because I'm feeling it. I'm watching my children feel it too, but we also saw that there was just a need for disruption from some. And I went back today and I pulled the Appeal for Human Rights. It was a document that was drafted by some students from the Atlanta University Center. Rosalind Pope was a Spelman student. And it was a very succinct document that was put together during the civil rights movement that outlined exactly what their grievances were and the resolution that they were seeking. And I think that is a conversation that we have to move towards now. We have articulated our grievances. We're angry, but now we've got to formalize it so we'll know what the point of satisfaction is in this country. And there's so much work to be done.
Yes, but I think a lot of, and especially a lot of the young people are saying the peaceful protests didn't work because we're still in a situation like this. So the peaceful protests don't work. I feel like there's there has to be, and I've spoken with Tyler Perry about this, and a lot of people, like, there has to be a plan.
Even today, when I pulled the Appeal for Human Rights that the students drafted in the 1960s, I sent it over to Killer Mike. And what I said to him is, we've got to lead this conversation and create a true framework. Our young people don't have any direction and there is no clear leadership, but we've been through this before. And I often quote Audre Lorde: revolution is not a one time event. Peaceful protests in this country got results. We got through the civil rights movement and we have been moving forward in this country for a very, very long time. But it didn't happen in an instant in the same way one protest is not going to make everything suddenly go away and change. It's got to be a framework for us to know exactly what it is that we want. We know that we want Black men and women not to be killed on our streets. That's a very easy answer. But the reality is, if we don't change our policies and if we don't acknowledge and address the systematic issues that have gotten us to this point today, then we're going to be in this state of chaos for a very long time.
And I think that is such an important point because as a white father, I have never had to say to my kids, be careful when you go out there. Be careful for the police. And when you are a Black child in this country, and I've explained this to my 13-year-old twins, this is something you go through every day. You wake up every morning and know you are Black, and you know that you are going out there and you are going to be in a level of potential danger that my two sons will never have to understand.
And I appreciate your saying that. And I was even thinking back to after Ferguson, having a conversation with my son and him saying to me, Mom, you have no idea how hard it is to be a Black boy in America. And I remember his anguish and his pain. And what struck me today as I was thinking about Ferguson is that for his entire life, he's had to deal with this anguish and this pain because he's seen it on television day in and day out, and he feels helpless. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how many conversations I have with my kids and my sons. If you aren't having them with your kids, then we all got to have this conversation. But I do think there's been a monumental shift in this country this week. And I know it's true because I'm seeing white police officers take a knee next to Black protesters. So the fact that they are articulating very boldly and very publicly saying, I don't have all of the answers, but I recognize that you're hurting, I think is a step that we hadn't seen taken in this country, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have the sheriff in Flint, Michigan, who was fantastic, who took off his uniform, his badge, and marched with the peaceful protesters and took a knee. And I think we have to take a break, and then because I want to get all this in, so I'm going to take a break, and then but that just broke my heart, just hearing your son say you have no idea how hard it is to be a Black boy, and it's like I can't imagine growing up with that kind of anxiety and fear. And of course that creates anger. Of course that it goes somewhere when you're so. We're going to take a break and we'll be back.